I just rolled credits on Zack Snyder's Justice League, and, well, I have some thoughts. Today we're going to give you our full impressions and spoiler-free recap and review of this movie right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Assemble. My name is Matt. How are you? If you guys are returning subscribers and viewers, how you doing? It's good to see you. It's good to have you. If you're brand new to the show, thank you so much for stopping by. Today, it's all about Justice League. I just wrapped 4 hours on this thing, and I want to talk to you guys about it overall, spoiler-free. So let's get right into it. Do we feel that Zack Snyder's Justice League does justice? Does the film justice? Is it better than the original? My overall thoughts is that yes. It took us 4 hours to see Zack Snyder's vision of this movie, his way, his interpretation of the characters, the storyline, and the direction of everything to finally get it to kind of come to fruition. I think that they absolutely did some really great things, and yes, I think they nailed it far and away from the original adaptation. We all know about a lot of the plot holes and issues that we had with the original film where stuff felt clunky, didn't make sense, it was overly trying to be funny with a lot of the characters, things weren't fleshed out, and for 2.5 hours-ish on the original, we still didn't really get what we needed or wanted. Now we have a 4-hour adventure that we go through with all of these characters, and I have to say that in large part, everything is kind of hit. There are very few misses, and there's really not much that I would say doesn't work in the film. Here are a lot of the pluses for you if you have watched it or you're getting ready to watch it yourself. The one thing that stood out for me throughout the entire film is going to be character depth and development. This was sorely lacking in the original Justice League, and this time around, I feel that the characters are treated with much more respect and stuff is earned, if that makes sense. None of the characters feel weak in terms of their adaptation, in terms of their development, and there are a lot of standouts within this film that we didn't get in the original. Batman feels better in this film. Ben Affleck's Batman is structured, it's well done, and he's not in the background like he felt in the first Justice League, where he doesn't match up and he's just a guy, and they almost identify that Batman is just kind of useless, so he's going to show up later. Here he is much more front and center as trying to lead it. I wish they did a little bit more with him with that regard, but I thought Batman was treated a lot better, and they utilized Batman in his best way possible for what they were dealing with in terms of Steppenwolf. Wonder Woman's character too, she was really well done in terms of just being a badass, not taking any crap. Her fight sequences were solid, and they didn't play with the conflict between her and Bruce like they did in the first film, and that was unnecessary plots and threads, and they alluded to it a little bit here and there, but it was just kind of like peppered in, and it wasn't really anything to focus on. But I thought they did her really well, and it's a very stark difference from what the character has been in the DCEU. And what we get here, she's strong, and she's strong-willed, and she has her mission, and she plays her role very well within the Justice League itself. Aquaman was probably the one character that I felt was just kind of there, that didn't develop any more within this 4 hours. You get a little bit with him and a little bit more context in terms of the interactions he has with Bruce towards the beginning of the film, as well as in Atlantis. And again, you get a little bit more with Aquaman, but it's nothing revolutionary, and it doesn't make you feel like the movie is surrounding him. He's very much an extra player on the team, has his moments still, but it doesn't do anything that's groundbreaking or new. It's still fine for Aquaman. Barry Allen, Flash, and Cyborg, for me, were the big standouts for the Justice League as a whole, just in terms of how their characters really developed and how they were more prominent and featured and had purpose within the film. And as you guys watch the film and as you go through it, I don't like how they set up the Flash for Flash's introduction. I won't get into it here. We will be doing our full spoiler review later. But I thought the way that they introduced Barry was cringy and clunky, and I didn't care for it. I think that they could have done it 10 different ways to be able to introduce that character within 5 minutes. And I think it was just, it fell really flat. It wasn't anything that excited me. And again, I thought it was really cringy to watch Barry go through that introductory piece. That was a big miss for that character. For the rest of it, Flash was done well. They teed him up that his powers meant something, that he was a big integral part of the team and what they were trying to do throughout the film. And for those big moments, he had a big role to play. The one thing that I noticed between the two films is that there was much more humor and the jokes landed more in the first Justice League than they did here, or they were scrapped in this version for Zack Snyder. Like, they tried some of these humor and points, and some of them were kind of, oh, they were fine, but they weren't trying to be overly jokey or anything like they were in the first one. So it's this weird contrast where Flash didn't stand out as being overly humorous, and like his jokes and everything didn't really land, and his personality really didn't land in this version like they did in the last one for me. But I felt that his character arc was way better structured, and it landed way more overall in this version with Zack Snyder. And again, Barry's powers really excelled. The way that he utilized everything within the fight scenes and some of the banter back and forth, it was good. So I think they did a really much better job when it came to Flash in this interpretation. Cyborg is the big one. They did a really great job for actually having you give a crap about Cyborg, because in the first one, you didn't. You didn't care, and you didn't care what his backstory really was, and it was very half-assed and quickly introduced. He is a cyborg, and then they just move on, really. And then he's kind of part of the Justice League, and that's kind of it. This film felt like for 4 hours, you got like a solid, I mean, throughout the whole film, they covered Cyborg, but you really felt like this was going through his origin story because of how integral he was to the Mother Box, to the story overall. It made sense, and they tied everything in very well when it came to Cyborg for his relationship with his father, problems he has, the tragedies, and where, like, how does all of his powers and abilities develop, and how it's all related to the main plot of the movie. So I thought that was Cyborg. I was like, oh, this actually makes sense. And you understand his motivations more and his hesitations and reservations, but you understand as a casual viewer of anything DC, or you're not familiar with Cyborg as a character, this helps you understand at least where that character kind of stems from and really what's going on with him. In the first one, you didn't get that. If you weren't in tune with DC lore, you really didn't know anything about Cyborg, or you really just didn't care about him as a character. Cyborg, I thought, was really well done. It was probably the standout for me was how his character was treated and how they just utilized him throughout the whole thing. And of course, you have Superman, and Superman was in there too. Superman, again, we've seen him for all of the trailers and everything with the black suit, and I thought that Superman's role within the film, again, was done very well. And it did feel, though, that because you have a 4-hour journey and experience in this, there were moments where I was sitting there and I actually paused and I was like, okay, it's intermission time for me. They got to be getting close to Superman now, and I was kind of like, just over 2 hours, and thought, holy crap, I still have another 2-ish hours to go, and I still haven't gotten there yet. With big payoffs and all of that, it's still building and building. We're getting there. But I thought that Superman was just enough throughout the film, and leading up to kind of the big pieces towards the end, and the big set pieces and the big moments, his role was really well done, and it didn't overdo it and overstay its welcome. I wish they got there a little bit sooner. The one thing I did like, though, was the scene when they are actually in the park where Superman does come back. And this is a little spoiler for, like, if you haven't seen the first Justice League, and if you haven't, then I don't know why you're here. But I think that when Superman makes his initial return, and there is that original scene in Justice League with all of the Justice League members standing there minus Batman. And in the first one, as you remember, they kind of make fun of Batman for like being slow and late because they all have powers and can be fast and he can't. That is gone. And I was actually waiting for it to come to be like, are they going to use it for comedic relief? And they didn't. They set a more serious tone when it came to Superman and coming back, and the Justice League themselves. Like, they took things more seriously, and it was refreshing to see that they didn't just spit out some canned lines and make Batman look like a chump. And that initial scene is flushed out more with Superman returning. It's much more impactful. and you understand what's really going on versus it feeling very rushed in the original version. And again, the characters in the original one, very rushed and very like just pushed through very quickly to get them to these points with Superman and get them to become the Justice League and get them to team up, and it didn't make sense. It's not a perfect film. There's still a lot of issues in terms of like a little bit of the pacing. Again, Aquaman is not any more of a character. The scenes with Lois and Martha were good, but I felt like they did slow things down, and they weren't really as necessary for furthering any of the plot or the storylines. I thought Lois's moments in the film mattered, and when they did use her as a character, then it was set up properly. Even Martha, but I did feel that you just didn't need it for the story that they were telling, and it did slow things down just a little bit, but overall, I don't think it really hurt anything. Steppenwolf and the Mother Box. This was one of my highlights for this whole film, because I understood, one, he looked better in his CGI versus his old CGI. He just looks better as a villain. He's still a big brute, he's still just the big antagonist bad guy, but I feel like we actually understand what the heck he's doing, why the hell Steppenwolf is here, and why he wants the Mother Box, other than he just wants it. This was way, way better and way more calculated and drawn out, and you got the backstory, at least some of it, to understand the relationship and what's going on with Darkseid and how all these pieces are coming together for him, what his motivation actually is for trying to get the Mother Box. And they set that up early on, and they tweaked enough of the scenes, obviously, so that it wasn't just a rehash of them. You really could tell throughout the whole film how much more content there was, and there's like 2 hours worth of film here than there was of the original, where you do get the backstory of Steppenwolf, but you get the moments when he's fighting the Amazons towards the beginning. That is much more fleshed out and understood. And there's more intensity to it, I found too. You felt like he was a giant threat. And you saw him throughout the movie, and you saw even his character arcs go and move along with the film. And you understood why he needed to get the Mother Boxes to fulfill what he's trying to do. Now, it's a long movie. It's 4 hours. Could this work in theaters? My opinion is no. I don't think you could have a 4-hour standalone film that, even if you provided an intermission, it doesn't work. That's my opinion. I think that the only solution for what this is really could have been HBO Max. I think that there were talks of it trying to be a series on HBO where they were going to do it in chapters, because they do that throughout the film where you are getting kind of, part 1 and part 2 and so on. If they did it that way, I don't think that would have worked either. I think that this was the only way home for them when they were trying to get this thing out and get it across. It was a 4-hour standalone experience, and because it's on HBO Max, you can start and stop when you want, you can take your breaks and so on. I don't think that this final cut could have worked in theaters. It's so damn long. Not in a bad way, because the pacing was good. It was solid, and I really felt like it went at a good click all the way through. I never sat there and thought, okay, I gotta go have lunch and take a break for half an hour and I'll come back, or looking at my computer or anything, because I felt like, okay, I know these parts. Everything was paced in a really solid way and mixed in with a lot of new content versus that of old scenes, so you didn't feel like, oh, I know what happens for the next 10 minutes. You needed to watch. You needed to pay attention closely, because there was enough happening and there was enough new in there mixed in with some of the old content that it just felt like a different film, and it really is. But what you can see is that with a 4-hour experience, this could have been and probably should have been 2 films. And you can see throughout all of it that this definitely could have been setting up a world of Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, which was originally discussed when the first film was coming out and being made. It totally would have made sense had they gone down that route of a 2.5-hour Part 1, and then likewise for a Part 2, to then set up the universe further down the road. Now, we don't live in that world anymore, so we have what we have. And this is as good as I think they were going to get with the budget that they had when they put millions of dollars into this and reshoots, and the reshoots worked and things didn't feel out of place, and we didn't get mustache Superman. There's a lot of pluses in here. So as a DC fan, as it's a good, solid DC movie. All the hype and everything behind it. Do I think that it is like this alternate universe movie that changes everything around? Not necessarily, but it is a hell of a lot better than the original that we got, and it makes you feel proud and enjoy the DCU more. Now you just want to be able to see what they're going to do next. It leaves me more excited to want a Ben Affleck Batman movie that we're not going to get. Now we're going to get The Batman, and it looks great in its own right. But I wonder if that's going to have anything tied to the DCEU that Zack Snyder's built out at all, or if it's just going to be completely separate. We have a lot of rumors of the multiverse with Batman from Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck. Like, there's a lot of pieces that are moving right now, and the way this movie was done, it made me excited to go, oh, great, I'm ready for a Ben Affleck Batman. I wanted that standalone Batman film because I enjoy him as Batman. Michael Keaton is still the best Batman, but still. Ben Affleck does a commendable job in this version of Justice League. It does make me excited for Flash, for Cyborg, and to be honest, I think they could have gotten away with, had they not done it this way, you could have had a Cyborg origin story movie, and it would have worked. And it could have led into the Justice League movie that we have, but they've built it into this film, and it's still great in that regard. As a character, it really landed. So no, it's not a perfect film. If Justice League 1 is giving you like a 4 or 5 out of 10, I'm putting this up high as like an 8 to an 8.5, because it leaves the door open for a lot more, but we don't know if we're going down those roads or not. And where I think that they made the big mistake with the DCEU originally is what Marvel has done so well in its own right, which is setting up individual films with the individual bad guys and antagonists throughout those to lead together to get to the Avengers movie. To come together and you understand the motivations and the other characters because you've seen them throughout these films leading to this one. And we didn't get that with DC. We've got everything in Justice League, and then we got these solo films, and then we've got another Justice League, and now where are we going? And if this is kind of the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League universe, I sincerely doubt it is, based on how successful this is probably going to be as a film. I think it will do banger numbers for HBO, and that's what they want. And they're going to see their subscriptions and everything go through the roof for this, simply based on curiosity and people going through HBO Max and seeing Batman, Superman, New Justice League. They're going to watch it. It might be turned off by 4 hours, but a very casual viewer is still going to enjoy this as a full experience. So it's leaps and bounds as Superman would go, and it is better than the original. I wonder what they would do with this version of Zack Snyder's, and are we going to get more down the road? Let me know what you all think of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Did it work for you? What were some of the moments? Spoiler free here. We're putting this on YouTube. Be nice in the comments. Let me know what you think. Did it work overall for you? And were there moments and areas that didn't? Again, it's not perfect, but it's way better than what we got before. Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing our full deep dive spoiler review and recap rewind of Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and we're going to be doing that in a 2-part episode that we're going to have up on our Patreon at patreon.com/assembleshow. You're going to be getting that over the weekend, and then you're going to be getting that later on over on YouTube. So if you're interested, we have exclusive content over on Patreon coming at you this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'm Matt here on Assemble. Are you going to rewatch it? How quickly? You know, I might go back and rewatch a couple of parts of this thing just to get ready for the spoiler review. Man, it's 4 hours. It's a long way. But I did have fun, and I hope you guys did too. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. As always, thank you guys for assembling with us. See ya.